I watched them for 3 months before I made my first move. Their home, large and bright on a quiet Maple Line street, became my theater. I knew what time Richard Winters left for his thriving law firm. I knew his wife, Eleanor, had her book club on Tuesdays and yoga on Thursdays. I knew their eldest daughter, Sarah, was an artist with a romantic soul, and the younger one, Olivia, was a cynical, sharp-tongued college student who thought she was smarter than everyone else. I knew their laughter, their habits, the brand of wine they preferred with dinner. I knew their superficial, glossy happiness. A happiness built on a foundation of lies. On the life that was stolen from me. Eleanor Winters, the woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, wasn't just their mother. 27 years ago, she was mine. For a few short, frightened days. And then she left me, a newborn infant, on the steps of a church with a note that didn't even include a name. They named me Ethan. I changed my last name as often as I changed foster families. I grew up knowing only one thing. I was a secret. A shameful mistake hidden away so it wouldn't spoil the beautiful picture. The years in the system taught me to be invisible, to listen more than I spoke, and to understand that trust was a currency you couldn't afford to waste. They taught me patience. And hatred. Not the hot, furious kind that burns you from the inside out. My hatred was cold. Calculating. It was the compass that guided me through a rootless childhood and a bitter youth. Finding her wasn't hard when you have a purpose and all your saved-up money. A private investigator took a couple of weeks. Eleanor Grace, a young girl from a conservative family, had gotten pregnant out of wedlock. The shame. The scandal. The child was removed like a stain from an expensive dress, and Eleanor herself was quickly married off to a promising young man, Richard Winters. And she began her perfect life. I looked at their family photos on social media. Picnics, birthdays, Christmas holidays at ski resorts. Every smile was a slap in my face. Every hug, a knife in my back. They were living the life they had stolen from me. And I decided I would collect my debt. Not with money. Not with screams and accusations. I would take from them what they valued most. I would take them from each other. My plan was simple in its essence but required surgical precision. I wasn't going to break into their lives. I was going to seep into them. To become a part of their world so organically that they would open every door to me themselves. Target number 1 was Sarah. The eldest, the dreamer, yearning for a true, great love like in the novels she read. She was the most vulnerable. Her studio was in a converted warehouse downtown. I rented the space across from it, introducing myself as a photographer named Jacob. For a few weeks, I just watched. Then I, accidentally, bumped into her at the coffee shop next door. I spilled a latte on her. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm so clumsy," I said, feigning sincere remorse. I looked directly into her eyes, using the disarming gaze I had perfected over the years. "It's okay," she smiled. "It's just coffee. Please, let me at least pay for the dry cleaning. And a new coffee. And maybe dinner as an apology for my blatant awkwardness." She laughed. The hook was set. Our first dinner turned into a series of dates. I was everything she had ever dreamed of. An attentive listener who admired her paintings. A mysterious photographer who had traveled the world. I had crafted my backstory meticulously. I told her fabricated stories of my lonely childhood, of being an orphan, creating the image of a tragic hero she so desperately wanted to save. I shared just enough pain to evoke sympathy, but not pity. "I feel like I've known you my whole life," she said one evening, pressing against me. "I feel the same way," I replied, and for a moment, the lie sounded almost like the truth. Slowly but surely, I drove a wedge between her and her family. Especially between her and Olivia. "Your sister, she doesn't seem to like me very much," I'd say with a hint of sadness after another family dinner I'd been invited to. "Olivia doesn't trust anyone," Sarah would sigh. "She thinks everyone is hiding something. Maybe she's just afraid you'll be happy and have less time for her? Sometimes sisterly love can be so possessive." I planted seeds of doubt. Small, almost imperceptible ones. I praised Sarah for her talent while simultaneously hinting that her family might not appreciate it enough. "This painting is brilliant," I'd say, looking at her new canvas. Your mother said it was nice. She just doesn't see the depth. She sees a little girl, not a great artist. Sarah began to pull away from them. She saw their concern as control, their advice as criticism. I became her sole confidant. Her world. Next was Richard. His weakness was his reputation. An impeccable lawyer, a pillar of the community. I spent months digging into his past. And I found it. A small mistake in his youth, a case he'd handled at the dawn of his career. He had helped cover up a company's financial fraud, receiving a substantial seed fund for his own firm in return. Nothing criminal could be proven anymore, but the stain on his reputation could be enormous. I leaked the information anonymously to the local paper through a disposable email. Not direct accusations, just hints, questions, copies of old documents that cast doubt on Mr. Winters' pristine integrity. All hell broke loose. The phone in their house rang off the hook. Richard became nervous, irritable. He spent his evenings in his study, trying to find the source of the leak. The happiness in their home developed its first serious crack. He lashed out at Eleanor, accusing her of being too chatty with her friends. He yelled at Olivia for her constant questions. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" he would roar. I watched with satisfaction. The ivory tower was beginning to crumble. Olivia. She was the hardest target. She was immune to my charm. From day one, she looked at me with suspicion. "So where did you say you were from?" she'd ask, her eyes narrowed. "I've lived a lot of places. The last couple of years in Southeast Asia." "Must be interesting. And where's your family?" "I don't have a family," I'd answer, pouring all the pain of my real past into those words. It was the only truth I ever told them. She didn't believe me. She was the only one who sensed the falsehood. And that made her dangerous. So I decided to use her distrust against her. I knew she sometimes went into Sarah's studio when she wasn't there. I accidentally left a folder with fake documents on my desk in my photo studio, the door to which I intentionally left unlocked. A fake passport with a different name, printouts of bank statements with large sums coming from offshore accounts. Everything that could suggest I was some kind of con man or fraud. As I expected, she found the folder. A few days later, she caused a scene. "He's not who he says he is, Sarah. I saw his documents. His name isn't Jacob. He's lying to you. You went through his things." Sarah was horrified by her actions. "I can't believe you. You're just jealous of my happiness. I'm trying to protect you. He's dangerous. You're the one who's dangerous with your paranoia." Sarah screamed. I appeared in the middle of the argument, just as planned. "What's going on here?" Olivia turned to me, her eyes flashing. "I know who you are. Or rather, I know you're not Jacob the photographer." I looked at her with an expression of deep hurt. Then I turned my gaze to Sarah. "She found the folder, didn't she?" I asked quietly. "I should have told you sooner." I sat down and told them a heartbreaking story. That my real name was different, and I had been forced to change it because my father was involved in crime. That the money in the accounts was an inheritance I was hiding from his former partners. That I had come to this quiet town to start a new life, to forget the past, and to be with the woman I loved. "I was afraid that if you found out, you'd be scared and leave me, Sarah," I finished, looking at her pleadingly. Sarah was crying. She hugged me. "I'll never leave you." Then she turned to her sister. "And you? I don't want to see you. You tried to destroy my happiness because of your sick fantasies. Get out." Olivia looked at us with an expression of shock and disgust. She had lost. In her family's eyes, she was now a hysterical, envious liar. I hadn't just defeated her, I had isolated her. Turned her into an outcast in her own home. And so, only she remained. Eleanor. All this time, I had kept my distance from her. I was polite but cold. She, on the other hand, was drawn to me. I think, deep down, she saw something familiar in me. Not my features, I looked like my biological father, whom she probably wanted to forget. But maybe she sensed the same emptiness that had once been inside her. My final act was planned for her 50th birthday. A big party to which all their friends and relatives were invited. Their entire perfect world was to gather in one place to witness its own collapse. A week before the party, I planted the first hint. An anonymous envelope with a photograph of the very church where she had left me. No note. Just the photo. I saw through the window as she looked at it, her face turning as white as a sheet. Then, 2 days before the party, I sent her a box. Inside were a pair of baby booties. The exact same kind I was wearing when I was found. I had learned that from my adoption file. She began to fall apart. Richard was consumed by his own problems, Sarah by me, and Olivia had withdrawn into herself. Eleanor had no one to talk to. Her secret, buried for nearly 3 decades, began to break through the surface, like a corpse rising from the grave. The night of her birthday. The house was full of guests. Everyone was laughing, drinking champagne, giving toasts to the beautiful hostess. Eleanor moved among them like a ghost, a strange smile on her face. Sarah shone beside me. Richard tried to play the gracious host. Olivia stood in a corner, watching everyone with a grim expression. Time for presents. Sarah insisted that I give something too. Jacob has a special surprise for Mom, she announced. I stepped into the center of the room. All eyes were on me. I looked directly into Eleanor's eyes. I thought for a long time about what to give a woman who has everything. I began in a calm, steady voice. Money, fame, recognition, it's all fleeting. So I decided to give you something that can't be bought. I decided to give you a memory. I pulled a small, yellowed note from my pocket. 27 years, 4 months, and 12 days ago, a young girl left her newborn son. She left him with this note. I began to read. My voice didn't waver. Please, take care of him. I can't. Give him a good life. The life I won't be able to give him. A dead silence fell over the room. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Eleanor looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw more than just fear. I saw recognition. The primal terror of your worst nightmare coming to life and staring back at you. What does this mean? Richard whispered, looking from me to his wife. Sarah looked at me, bewildered. But Olivia, understanding was slowly dawning on her face. All the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. My orphan story, her suspicions, her mother's strange behavior over the last few days. Mom. Sarah's voice trembled. Eleanor was silent. She just stared at me, tears streaming down her face. It was her confession. Louder than any words. My name is Ethan, I said, finishing the performance. And I'm not a photographer. I'm that baby. The secret you got rid of to build this beautiful life. I didn't come for an apology. I came to collect my debt. I turned and looked at the ruin I had created. Richard was staring at his wife with horror and disgust, realizing their whole life was built on a lie. Sarah was sobbing, looking at me with betrayal in her eyes. I had shattered not only her family but also her heart. Olivia, the only one who had been right, looked at me with a strange mixture of hatred and understanding. She didn't see a monster. She saw the result. Cause and effect. And Eleanor, she was just kneeling in the middle of her ruined party, her ruined world. Her perfect picture had been torn to shreds. I turned and walked to the door. Behind me, I heard screams, sobs, the sound of breaking glass. The music of my revenge. I stepped out into the cool night silence. I had done what I had spent my whole life working towards. I had destroyed them. I had made her feel the pain and emptiness that I had felt. I had won. But as I walked down the dark, empty street, away from the lights of the house where chaos reigned, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt nothing. Only the cold. The same cold that had been with me since the very first day. I had destroyed their family, but I hadn't found my own. I had avenged the past, but I had no future. I was a ghost who had achieved his goal. And now I was doomed to wander forever in the ruins I myself had created. Revenge, it turned out, is a dish that doesn't satisfy. It only leaves you hungrier, in an empty house where the echo is your only companion. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left, and thank you for watching.